We've all experienced the healing, soothing, and uplifting power of words. It only takes one thoughtful remark to shift a person from despair to hope for the future. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Echoes of Love. My name is Jack, and I am a spiritual companion. We're all familiar with the enormous harm that words can do. Anger or cruelty in a word can wreak havoc on a relationship and leave it scarred for years. However, this does not rule out the positive effects of frustration. By examining how our various emotions lead us to the things we most desire, and by exploring our creativity on how to transform judgment, anger, and fear into compassion for ourselves and other people, we can continue our journey forward. Don't stop believing. As I mentioned earlier, words can have a positive effect on us. On the other hand, language can be used to manipulate and coerce on a mass scale in order to incite war, oppression, fear, and to advance political agendas of genocide or terror. As we share our thoughts, feelings, and desires, each moment is punctuated by a play of words. Words can build you up, words can break you down. Our body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, physical actions, and even our thoughts are all forms of communication that we often overlook when speaking or even writing. The tone of our exchanges isn't neutral. A greater amount of compassion, love, and harmony can be created every time we speak. Otherwise, more pain and violence will be inflicted on the world. What we communicate is both what we send out into the world and what is left behind when we are no longer around. When we communicate with one another, we are ensuring our own survival. What we say matters, perhaps more than ever before. Let my words be life. Let me tell you a story that you've probably seen on many social media, which is attributed to Nelson Mandela and Gandhi. But whoever this story was from, this is something good to share. And maybe this could be you. When a student was studying law at the university, a white professor, whose last name was Peters, disliked him intensely. One day, Mr. Peters was having lunch at the dining room when the student came along with a tray and sat next to the professor. The professor said, "You do not understand. A pig and a bird do not sit together to eat." The student looked at him as a parent would a rude child and calmly replied, "You do not worry, Professor. I'll fly away." He went and sat at another table. Mr. Peters, reddened with rage, decided to take revenge. The next day in class, he posed the following question: If you were walking down the street and found a package, and within was a bag of wisdom and another bag with money, which one would you take? Without hesitating, the student responded, the one with the money, of course. Mr. Peter, smiling sarcastically, said, I, in your place, would have taken the wisdom. The student shrugged and responded, each one takes what he doesn't have. Mr. Peters, by this time, was about to throw a fit, seething with fury. So great was his anger that he wrote on the student's exam sheet the word idiot. The student looked at the exam sheet and sat down at his desk, trying very hard to remain calm while he contemplated his next move. A few minutes later, the student got up, walked up to his professor, and told him in a dignified, polite tone, Mr. Peters, you signed your name on the sheet, but you forgot to give me my grade. What would you do if you were in that situation? It's strange to think of Jesus being angry with us when we're so used to seeing him as a loving and forgiving figure. Jesus, on the other hand, was kind and compassionate. He said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. The Apostle Matthew writes, let those who are weary and burdened find relief in me. Embrace my teachings, for I am gentle and humble in heart. That sounds nice, right? But what about this? You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Yes, that was Jesus. Although he was kind and compassionate, his words could be biting at times. Many of Jesus' sayings were either a condemnation of someone's attitude or behavior or an illustration of that condemnation through the use of parables or parable like stories. Anger isn't a bad emotion. It is not a sin to be angry. But Ephesians tells us, in your anger, do not sin. In other words, expressing one's anger is not something to be avoided. Angry reactions are a gift because they challenge us to connect with the unmet needs that sparked this response as an indicator that we're thinking in an unproductive manner. Anger serves as a warning. Jesus' own brother James said, we should be slow to anger, not never angry. Clearly, there is room for error in our response to anger. In addition, Jesus warned us against it in Matthew 5:22, saying that we can commit murder with our hateful words. It's terrible and sinful to be filled with hatred, rage, and uncontrolled anger. Anger that causes you to want to do something positive about the negative is a godly kind of anger. It is an anger that stems from a deep sense of injustice, oppression, abuse, and exploitation. This is exactly what Jesus did with his anger. In every scriptural instance where Jesus expresses anger, the rawest of all emotions, this is the match that lit his fuse. when our hearts stand in the way of God's love. Everything Jesus set out to do was centered around bringing the Father and his children back together. People who block access to the Father because they are unloving are what angered Jesus the most while on this earth, because that is what Jesus was called to do, to love. So, what purpose does God want you to serve with your anger? In my next video, I'll be talking about nonviolent communications. So, please stay tuned for the next video.